The West used to laugh at Southeast Asia, not quietly, loudly. From air-conditioned offices in Washington, London, or Paris, they'd sit back and smugly label this region third world, developing, corrupt, or my personal favorite, insignificant. Western journalists treated Southeast Asia like it was just some exotic backdrop for disaster stories or backpacker adventures. Look at the poverty, they'd say, sipping overpriced lattes made from beans grown in the very countries they mock. They never respected the people here, never respected the culture, and they definitely never thought Southeast Asia would matter on the world stage. The arrogance was astronomical. For them, Asia meant either Japan or China. Everyone else was a footnote. But now, they're panicking. Because the same region they once ignored is becoming the center of the global economy, the heart of supply chains, the new battleground for influence. And, worst of all for them, it's happening without the West in control. See, the West isn't used to being sidelined. They're used to giving orders, setting the terms, writing the rules and expecting everyone else to say thank you. But in Southeast Asia today, those rules mean nothing. This region has flipped the script. From Indonesia to Vietnam, from the Philippines to Malaysia, governments are choosing partnerships based on outcomes, not ideology. And guess who's delivering results? Not the US, not the EU, it's China. Relentless, unapologetic, pragmatic China. And that's what really burns the West, because they're not just losing control of the region. They're losing it to a country they've spent decades demonizing, sanctioning, and trying to isolate. And it's not working. In fact, it's backfiring spectacularly. Please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's talk facts. 20 years ago, Asean's combined GDP was about $600 billion. By 2023, it had skyrocketed past $3.9 trillion. That's a six-fold increase. Let that sink in. While the US was spending trillions bombing the Middle East and arguing about pronouns, Southeast Asia was quietly transforming into a global economic engine. The region now accounts for over 8% of global trade, and if ASEAN were a single country, it would already be the fifth largest economy in the world. And the growth isn't slowing. According to the Asian Development Bank, Southeast Asia's economy is expected to grow at 4.7% annually through the rest of the decade, far higher than most Western economies. Indonesia, once dismissed as unstable, is now a G20 nation and projected to become the seventh largest economy by 2030. Vietnam has been called the next China for good reason. Its manufacturing growth has exploded, with exports reaching $372 billion in 2022 alone. The Philippines, powered by its young and English-speaking population, is becoming a global services hub. And Malaysia is rapidly shifting into high-value industries, from semiconductors to aerospace. Now here's the part Western media tries hard to ignore. This kind of transformation didn't just happen. It wasn't organic. It was accelerated, supercharged by China. The Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013, has poured over $200 billion into Southeast Asia. That money didn't go into press releases. It went into railroads, highways, ports, power plants, digital infrastructure, the real stuff that drives growth. The China-Laos Railway, for example, slashed cargo transit times from Kunming to Vientiane from 2 days to 10 hours. A landlocked country now has direct access to global markets. That's game-changing. Indonesia's Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail, the first of its kind in Southeast Asia, now runs at 350 kilometers per hour, built by Chinese engineers with Chinese tech. Malaysia's East Coast Rail Link is connecting remote areas to ports, boosting domestic trade. Cambodia's national roads have been rebuilt. Myanmar got new power plants and fiber-optic networks. This isn't charity. This is infrastructure diplomacy, and China is winning because it's delivering. Meanwhile, what's the West doing? Complaining, lecturing, accusing. The second China builds a dam, the US cries debt trap. When China builds a port, Western media screams influence operation. When Southeast Asian leaders shake hands with Xi Jinping, CNN calls it a strategic miscalculation. It's hilarious. The West has no problem doing business with Saudi Arabia, but suddenly gets ethical when Malaysia signs a rail deal with China. Please. The hypocrisy is exhausting. Western aid comes with a list of conditions longer than your arm. Commit to democratic reforms, adopt certain values, and make sure you don't get too close to Beijing. Chinese investment, on the other hand, no lectures, No moral posturing, just roads, bridges, and money. Guess which one countries prefer. And here's what really stings the West. Southeast Asian nations aren't picking sides. They don't want to be dragged into some Cold War 2.0. They don't care about America's Indo-Pacific strategy or the EU's global gateway. They care about results. And 9 times out of 10, China delivers them faster, cheaper, and with fewer strings. That's why China is ASEAN's #1 trading partner by far. In 2022, ASEAN-China trade hit $975 billion, more than double the volume with the US, and with the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the largest trade bloc in history, China, ASEAN, Japan, and South Korea are building a new integrated economic order. The US isn't even in it. That's not a future the West is leading, it's one they're watching from the sidelines. Let's zoom out even more. The entire global economy is tilting eastward. Asia now accounts for 60% of global middle-class consumption and 57% of global manufacturing output. 7 of the world's 10 busiest ports are in East or Southeast Asia. Over 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail lines have been built in China, 0 in the United States. Singapore is leading in smart city tech, facial recognition, and AI-driven urban management. Vietnam and Thailand are building chip fabs and luring major tech firms. Indonesia is relocating its capital to Nusantara, a brand new smart city built with green technology, sustainable design, and major investment from China, Korea, and Japan. And what's happening in the West? Decaying infrastructure, political gridlock, culture wars. Europe is dealing with energy crises and stagnation. The US can't even build a high-speed rail between Los Angeles and San Francisco without spending billions and achieving nothing. They mock Chinese megaprojects, then quietly admit they wish they could do the same. But they can't. They're too divided, too arrogant, and too stuck in outdated ideologies. The West is obsessed with preaching. Asia is obsessed with building. And make no mistake, Southeast Asia is where it's all converging. This region isn't just a chessboard, it's the entire game. Whoever wins influence here wins the future of global trade, technology, and diplomacy. That's why every power is here. China, the US, Japan, India. But only one is actually dominating, and it's not Washington. It's Beijing. Through infrastructure, through trade, through diplomacy, and most importantly, through trust. Because despite the non-stop anti-China propaganda from Western think tanks, the reality is simple. When Southeast Asia needs something built, it turns to China. And not out of desperation, out of confidence. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this in the future, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel.